Hey everybody, welcome back to the Convo Couch. I'm Fiorella Isabel, and I am here with Jonny Sue on the ones and twos. What's up, fam?
Not much,
Your
fam. You
mic
know,
on?
we're here. So a lot of things going on today, huh? A lot of.
I know. I thought it was going to be a slow news day. Haha, no pun intended. I know they're still live. Great interview uh, our boy over here, Orf,
We gotta get
and
Orf on.
we got to get Orf on. I would love to have him on again. Like all this censorship that's going on is really, really important to continue pointing out because we're all a part of it. We're still demonetized after how many months? 3 months, and we haven't gotten an answer. Um, so I thought it was going to be a slow news day, right? I thought we were going to have not much going on, but it turns out that there are a couple things going on that I'm gonna really dive into. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So you guys know that there's been this Medicare for All march that's happening on July 24th, Saturday. It's a 45 citywide march. I've seen, Joy Marie talk about it. I've seen numerous people talk about it. Um, and it started from a two-city march and grew into 45 cities wide. And I frankly want to congratulate all of the organizers for making that happen. I think that's amazing that this is what I was asking to see after Force a Vote. I was hoping we would keep this going, and that's what's happened. And I applaud the organizers for doing that in spite of all these bad actors, right, that have come and said, we're going to do everything we can to stop your march. We're going to do whatever it is to just cut this, right, to pretty much undermine everything that we supposedly stand for, because these people call themselves progressives. They really just completely smeared a lot of the organizers in the march to the point where Charles Booker backed out. And I don't buy his excuse, and this is solely my opinion. This is not the organizers. I'm not speaking on behalf of the march. This is the organizers that are that have worked so hard. This is why I'm saying this. I'm telling you, my personal opinion is that Charles Booker did that because of all the backlash from these people, because he had already committed, and then 3 to 4 days after, he decided, oh, I have a scheduling conflict. I don't buy that. I think if you're a candidate running for office and you're preaching Medicare for all and you don't show up, I think that says a lot about what you're going to do once you get into office. And I think we need to cut the bullshit of protecting these people for the sake of false pretense and just this pious politeness that is happening. Like, I'm done protecting candidates who really have made it their bread and butter to preach Medicare for all, to preach things like a $15 minimum wage, which is now barely anything. And then when they get into office, they don't do it. So if you're gonna protect these people and not call it out, then I think that's a problem, right? So Nina and AOC decided to organize a Cleveland Day of Action. Okay. And this was on Saturday, July 24th, 2021. That's the exact same day that the march is happening. The same exact day. And I wanted to do a stream now just randomly because I didn't think. I was just like, hey, let's do a stream, because honestly, like, I wasn't expecting to go live today. I'm actually taking a break. And it's really shitty to me to see this happening with people that I once thought were fighters for healthcare. But we know AOC took Medicare for all, right? And she pretty much campaigned on it, got money from working people on it, put it on a mask, put it on her merch. And yet when it came time to force a vote, when it came time to do anything, she didn't do anything for it. So they put out this tweet, right? And I'm going to read what I said, and then we're going to read the tweet. Jonny, if you want to pull up the tweet, I said, funny how AOC and Nina Turner decided to do a meetup on the day there's a 45 city march for Medicare for all. You know what they've campaigned on, what working people gave money to AOC for, what she's donned under mask in her merch, but didn't lift a finger to actually fight for, and instead gave money to police, because we know that the squad voted specifically to give money to police. And here it is. And I'm sure they're going to now mention expanding Medicare, because that's what they're talking about now. They're talking about expanding Medicare while ignoring the affected, right, and working class of the country, who is taking direct action to make this happen on the ground, because we know things don't happen from the top down. They happen from the bottom up. You push politicians to make change. You don't expect them to do it if they're not being pushed. And one of the things that we have basically on this whole show, both myself, Pasta, and Jonny have specifically pushed is direct action, 100% direct action. And we have been doing that too, not just organizing direct actions, but also covering them. And it's really interesting to me, and I don't think it's by coincidence, that they're doing a Cleveland Day of Action on the same day that this march is happening. Of course, it's happening in a different city in Ohio, but still, if I'm a candidate for office, or if I'm a congresswoman that ran on healthcare, I should show up and I should say, you know what, let's unite. We might have our differences, but let's talk about this thing that we all want to achieve, and they're not doing that. And I have seen the certain people online that are propped up by the likes of AOC and Nina Turner, who have been undermining this march in particular. And for the record, I want to read, I asked the staff if they had reached out to Nina Turner, and they said that they had, but she had said that she was too busy with her campaign to be involved. So that's what Nina Turner has said.
The staff March for Medicare for All?
The staff for Medicare for All, the organizers,
March,
it's not really a staff, for March for Medicare for All, reached out to Nina Turner and asked her to join the march. They've also been tweeting at her with no response, but her team, Nina Turner's team, responded saying that they were too busy with their upcoming election, which is a few days away, to be involved. I think that's a cop-out. I think that's ridiculous. It's one of the main things that progressives, Bernie Sanders' little platform, pushed.
Wow.
And for them to be like, no, I'm too busy, especially with the change in rhetoric, right? You've seen the change in rhetoric when it comes to, it went from Medicare for all to everybody should have healthcare to expanding Medicare, expanding Social Security, expanding, like, take these crumbs, take this incrementalism. And I was also made aware that there's a plan that the progressives in this progressive caucus have been pushing. It's a 20-year plan, to get Medicare for all, 20 years from now. I'm sorry. If you accept that, you're a complete and total useful idiot, because this has been happening since Nancy Pelosi was like in her 30s. That they've been preaching Medicare for all, universal health care. They didn't call it Medicare for all. They called it universal health care before. They've been saying, you're going to get this. This is going to be a thing. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. They've been dangling this carrot for decades, and they haven't done anything to get it. So when people actually say, you know what, we're not just going to rely on politicians to do it. We're going to get out in the streets and make them understand that we will have this, and we're not going to stop until we get it. That's what actually creates change. So I find it interesting that there's this whole movement to thwart that, to stop it. This whole movement of people who say they advocate for healthcare, yet they have done everything in their fucking power to stop this, everything in their power to stop it. So I just think it's, it's disingenuous. I think it's malicious, and I think there is an attempt that's coordinated and organized to stop this march because of the way the smears, right? With that guy that somebody infiltrated the group, put their picture in there, and now this whole thing is an entire, they were trying to say, oh, they're working with fascists and Nazis and blah blah blah. They're trying to make this into something it's not. The march is very decentralized, and I like that, which also, of course, it allows for issues to happen when you have that. So I think it's unacceptable. There are already people making excuses, and like I said, this particular opinion of how I think it's horrible that Nina Turner is doing this is my own. I know I share it with a few people that are involved, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of the organization as a whole. I am speaking on behalf of myself and a lot of the people who feel like this is really disgusting and a trash take and disingenuous, because how dare you? You knew this march has been planned for months. They knew the date. They knew what they were doing. You're not going to tell me that this is just a coincidence that this so happens to be on this exact date. And especially with AOC, with how she's been attacking a lot of the left who has been critical of her for backing away from force the vote, for backing away from healthcare, for changing her language into propping up Cobra. Like, this is nothing new, right? And so that is why I think this is not at all a coincidence, and I think it's disgusting. And I'm going to call out Nina Turner, Charles Booker, and any politician that is campaigning and preaching Medicare for all, but isn't actually supporting the on-the-ground efforts by people who are affected. Some of the people that will be speaking have medical debt. Some of the people that will be speaking are fully living this situation where they can't, or they're blind, like Joy Marie or Savage Joy, who is blind because she didn't have the money to get the medication that could have stopped it. People who can't afford their insulin, people whose family members have died because they couldn't afford the medication. You don't get to tell these people that you don't have time for them. You can take that and F right off, because I'm not gonna like mince my words with that. When you're a politician and you have a different level of reality that is before you compared to the reality of working people. When we were out there for Force the Vote, some of the speeches that they gave, one of the I forget his name, but he was a guy that had a bunch of bills all over him. He was talking about that. And I think when you look at it from that level of we can't afford our medication, so we go in debt, and now we're pretty much in debt in the slave system to where we can't get out of debt. We will forever be in debt. And this march is happening on July 24th, and it's happening over so many cities, and so many people are really excited to really walk the streets and to talk about this. And they've received nothing but threats, smears, and just disgusting behavior from a lot of people. And if a politician can't stand up and stand by the people before they're elected, what the fuck do you think is going to happen when they're already in office? Because we have been here before. We have made excuses for politicians before. And at the end of the day, they end up moving to the right. They end up backing away. So if you're not going to demand something before somebody gets elected, you're not doing your job. And I, for one, no longer believe in these politicians and electing more members of the squad, because I don't think that's going to do crap in the system we're in. I also have a different view of healthcare as a whole. Like, I believe everybody is a human right for everybody to have healthcare, regardless of who they are or what they do. I think everybody should have healthcare, but at the same time, I don't trust the government to fully implement that in the best way possible. Not the system we're in, but at the very least, I'd rather have people have their insulin. I'd rather have people be able to go to the doctor to catch a tumor before it expands, before it gets worse, before it spreads. I'd rather have people be able to have their basic needs met, even as the system is falling apart, because that way people will be more likely to be able to fight for other things. They'll be able to see, once they have their basic needs met, oh, what's going on here with this authoritarianism, with the surveillance state, with all these things. I think all these things are connected, and instead of fighting against, this is my issue, this is your issue, we need to realize, like, we're fighting for the survival of humanity, the freedom of humanity, and not get so caught up into, oh, well, this isn't my issue or your issue. And I really liked what Steve put out the other day. He said, this isn't my issue, but I support the march. And I love that, because it's like, it doesn't have to be your issue, but you can recognize that people are taking direct action to actually fight for something, and that is something that we have been waiting for. And one of the things that I also saw that I really liked on Frank Analysis, he had a panel with Roar Media and Joy Marie, and they were talking about, could this potentially lead to a general strike? Well, yeah, it will if you build it up. It's not, things don't happen overnight. The March on Washington didn't happen overnight. They weren't like, oh, there's a march here and that's it, and this is all going to happen. It took time for people to get to that point. And I think people forget that. They're like, oh, general strike tomorrow. That's not how general strikes work. You have to build coalitions with people from different issues, and then, go to each other's protests or each other's strikes or each other's marches, to the point where now you have each other, that you're relying on mutual aid, to the point where you make this a daily thing, where this is a thing that happens all the time. So I just wanted to really point that out. Did you have anything else to say on that?
No, it's just crazy that you're pretty much exposing them, fam, that they're not going to the march. The team responded. That's the big news to me, that the team responded to the March for Medicare for All people, and they said they're too busy doing the campaign. They're trying to knock doors for Nina, and AOC is going to be there, I guess. So that's going to be a thing on the same day. That just blows my mind, honestly. It blows my mind that that's happening. And these politicians ran on Medicare for All, and there's a Medicare for All march going on with multiple supporters. And like you said, people who have medical conditions that would want to speak on it, people that want to speak on it, right? And you have the G-offs of the Democratic Party, the little Dem operatives is what they are. They're just party loyalists, fucking sheeple. I don't know, whatever you want to call them, but yeah, they're operatives, I feel like. But trying to dismantle this damn march, and what they're doing on this march, and what I'm seeing on their website is incredible. You have a volunteer, you have a donate option. It's taking action in 8 days and 6 hours, 8 days and like a week. It's going to happen. And there's all these places, and then it says you need a ride to an event. They've thought of everything. This is an incredible organizing thing that's been going on. So check it out.
It's an incredible effort. Yeah,
it's an incredible effort. I haven't seen anything like this in recent times.
Right. And again, and they have all kinds of speakers, all kinds of people, everybody from people who are regular people living with conditions, to YouTubers, to like political candidates, to people that are just activists. All kinds of people are involved in this. And again, they have received nothing but insults and attacks, and have been resilient regardless. A lot of the people are trying to stay away from any controversy, but like I said, I'm not an organizer with that march. I am speaking on behalf of myself and on behalf of other activists who feel the same way. But this is gross that people, and I really like Tina Turner. And so for me, I've just been seeing her consistently start using the same neoliberal establishment talking points when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to praising Obama, when it comes to, the Russiagate stuff, when it comes to a lot of these things. So I think that's really where you can see the shift. And, somebody was like, well, maybe she'll endorse healthcare once she's in office. Really? Is that what you think? Do you really think that? Are you that naive to think that this is your time for negotiation right now? You don't get to negotiate once they have the power. Once they have power, then all you have left is to use your support through direct action to demand they do something. And we've seen that these people haven't done crap. I don't really care if you want to expand the squad. Expanding the squad means shit to me, because none of them have done crap during this whole COVID pandemic. That this is the media framework, that this whole pandemic has been so awful, yet they talk about vaccines, but they refuse to give you healthcare. That to me says everything. Do you really think they really care about making you and your family healthier? No, they care about making money and profiting off of big pharma. That's what this is about, big pharma and all of that. So it really, my view on healthcare, I really think even if we get healthcare for all, even when we get that, the fight isn't over. because then there's going to be, oh, you can only use this. This is only the kind of healthcare you need. We need to involve more Eastern medicine, like non-pharmaceutical type of medicine too in our healthcare, because a lot of the things we have in the system, a lot of the food we eat, a lot of the chemicals that are around us, that's what makes people sick. And people need to start understanding that. That's a huge part that's never ever talked about, especially on the left. And I think we, we're vegan too, right? Among other things for health too. It's a health thing too. It's all these things that are happening. And I think that's something that the left doesn't really talk about. So fam, let me check the Rokfin real quick.
Yeah, we got a few Rokfins. Shout out to Misty in the chat.
Misty, I know you have shit to say about this. I thought about it. I was like, Misty, I know she's got a rant for this. Trey Wright, thank you so much for the Super Ray contribution. Roar Media, I love that panel that you were on with Franco. Love our sister Fee and brother Johnny. Hugs, thank you guys. Chanda, Oz, and Amber, you guys did great on that panel.
And Franklin,
who got mentioned. Black in the Empire, leaving y'all a poor man's tip. Keep doing what you're doing. Any little bit helps.
Shout out to Black in the Empire. He's tweeting fire all the time.
I know. Your tweets like give me life. I love it. Like really, just nonstop, just fire ass tweets. Carrie Mark, nice to see you. Thank you, Fee and Johnny, for a show today. Medicare for all, stop COVID, tech censorship, stop silence, COVID truth. I agree, Carrie. We're not going to really go into that right now, but we do need to do a stream with the entire fam on COVID, because that it'll be Rokfin only, but there's a lot going on with that too. So we'll do that.
Yeah.
Wired and Tired, nice to see you guys who are here. Let's see. Carrie Mark, Nina's staff sounds like the same Sanders had running interference for the DNC. Oh, that's another thing I left out. According to Levi Sanders, who confirmed, Nina Turner hired Jeff Weaver and a lot of the same staff that pretty much blew up and undermined Bernie Sanders' campaign, just so you guys know. So I literally spent months exposing these people. Why the hell would you do that? Why the hell would you do that? I'm sorry. That just tells me everything you need to know.
Right.
Bethlehem Tessafe. Wow, Nina, glad she didn't get my dimes fee as usual. It sucks. I really, suck. I really like Nina. To me, during the whole campaign, she was the one that was actually saying more than the other staff members. She was one of the more fiery ones. And I'm not going to say, I'm not, good luck, right? But at the same time, do I think my life or anybody's life is going to change because of that? No. And I'm sick of giving money to people who aren't going to really walk the walk. And if you start shifting before you get elected, that's everything I need to know.
Right, the private and public position thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
I get bullshit. It, but then at the same time, it's and then it's well, the elections are rigged anyway, so it's
Yeah, that's another thing that we, they gave us a shout out too in that stream on talking about the rigged elections, because the elections are rigged and nobody talks about that except, us. We're one of the few people that talk about that. Hold on, let me turn off the auto scroll because it keeps scrolling for me.
So
Trish Taylor had one. I was on that. And BX call me. Hold on, it's not letting me turn it off. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Trish Taylor, El Brillante. Thank you, El Brillante. James Evans. Thank you guys so much for the tip. And then we have BX Kami. Keep speaking truth to power. Thank you for fighting for us. Happy to be part of the fam. Thank you, BX Kami. And I know you get a lot of crap online by these smear merchants. So thank you so much for being who you are and being, awesome. Facts on the ground. Thank you, Misty. Love you, fam. Your favorite neighborhood comrades is MC at the Columbus event. Best believing they'd be getting called out. Girl, I'm telling you, I cannot wait to see all these speeches. For damn sure I'm going to be saying some stuff. I'm going to be saying some stuff. I'm not going to hold back because that is gross to me. That is disgusting to me. That's how I feel about that. And protecting these politicians doesn't do us any favors. What have they done for you? What have they done for you? So I think that's all the Super Rays. I'm going to say hi to everybody on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in to this live stream. We never even go live on Thursday. So thank you for tuning in. Fam, let's go to the next topic real quick, because this is, I don't know. God, I'm not trying to pick on this woman. We haven't even mentioned her in weeks. But she put out this tweet and then she deleted it, right? Because, you know, we've been covering Cuba, and I appreciate all the shout outs I got for that Cuba video that I did. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a lot of information there. But here's AOC. She said this and then she deleted it. She said, "Vemos a los cubanos levantarse." We see the Cuban people rising up and protesting for their rights like never before. We are in solidarity with them, and we condemn the actions, the anti-democratic actions led by the President Diaz-Canel. Very clear stance against the president, the current president of Cuba, Diaz-Canel. Very, very usual status quo imperialist language. We stand in solidarity and condemn the anti-democratic actions of a country that's, in spite of the embargo, in spite of sanctions, in spite of the blockade, has lifted their people out of poverty, has a higher literacy rate than we do, has healthcare for all their people. You don't have to agree with the Cuban ideology. And I say this because not everybody on the left is going to agree with that ideology. And to me, that's irrelevant. I don't care how you feel about Cuba. What I care about is that they have sovereignty over their country, that the people of Cuba decide what's best for them, not people here who live here, not people who don't know what's going on, not people in other countries, not the United States government, but Cubans in Cuba can decide what they want, not us. And that's what's important to me. When you have this language, you're manufacturing consent for the United States involvement by saying we stand in solidarity against the current president. You're leaving out that thousands of people are marching in solidarity with the current government. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, that's what's happening. You're leaving out the fact that the propaganda machine has completely warped the situation to make it look like a bunch of Cubans are protesting the government, when that's not the case. It was maybe a few hundreds. And also, I didn't put it in here, Johnny, but if you go to my Twitter, there was a tweet where I put the CNN, because I've lived in Miami, right, Johnny? You were born in Miami. This is what they did. They put a photo of a protest in Miami and said it was Cuba on CNN. It says Cubans take to the streets in rare anti-government protests over lack of freedoms, worsening economy. You see that little circle right there? That's like La Calle de Miami. It's like, I'm trying to see what calle. It looks like 6th Street. I don't know. It could be 6th Street. For all I know, it's La Calle Ocho. For all I know, like it's not Cuba. That's not Cuba. They're posting a bunch of fake pictures of a bunch of fake crowds. Some of them not even in Cuba. Some of them in Argentina. Some of them in Egypt. Like, and they're making this, oh, look at the Cubans rising up, because they don't have anything real. So when AOC, somebody that ran on anti-imperialism, right? Somebody that ran on progressive, non-interventionist policies, goes and makes a tweet like that, and then subsequently deletes it. What does that say, Johnny? What does that say to you that she deleted this tweet?
Well, she deleted it and then she reposted like the statement. But obviously she was getting ratioed on that thread. She was getting ratioed hard on that thread because of what she said.
Yeah, she's standing with neocons right now, because guess what? Marco Rubio and Joe Biden have the same position on Cuba right now. One's a Republican Trump supporter. The other one is Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the Democratic candidate. The Democrats right now have both houses. They have the Senate, they have the House, and they have also, of course, the executive branch. Yet they're still blaming Republicans. But when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to US intervention, when it comes to meddling in foreign elections, coups, see what's happening with Haiti. We see the OAS in Peru. They are best friends when it comes to that. When it comes to the national security state, they're best friends. When it comes to war, they're best friends. This is why I say you have the illusion of choice. You think that they're different, but they're really not. At the end of the day, they have each other's back. They don't have your back. So this is what she said in response to the deleted tweet. She said, earlier statement on Cuban protests was chopped up via several tweets and hard to follow. Here it is in full with Spanish being posted underneath. And so she said, from her official Rep AOC account, we stand in solidarity with the Cuban people and condemn the suppression of the media, speech, and protest. Really? Have you spoken about Julian Assange? Have you spoken about the condemnation of the free press in America? How journalists have been arrested? What was happening in Minneapolis? How our rights have been stomped over? How we're like the United States government is trying to extradite Julian Assange and is trying to exert international jurisdiction. What's happening with Facebook? What happened with Press TV? How we're trying to mark everything as Russia affiliated or like Iranian state affiliated or all of this. How we're maligning any sort of media or press that is critical of the U.S. empire. I haven't seen AOC say anything about that. In fact, I have seen her call for censorship of accounts who are critical of her. I've seen the opposite. So it's rich, once again, just like it was rich of Rubio to talk about press freedoms and freedom in general, to talk about freedoms when we don't have a fucking free press here. Like we're all domestic violent extremists because we believe that the government is overextending their strength, their power when it comes to the surveillance state, because we believe that there is corruption in our government. You can't say anything about COVID. You can't say anything about the elections. You can't undermine any sort of state narrative. And she's talking about Cuba being suppressed, having the media and speeches suppressed. She said, we also call for an end to the US embargo and additional Trump-era restrictions that are profoundly contributing to the suffering of Cubans. The United States has had sanctions, embargoes, and blockades in Cuba for decades. So Trump actually did this whole theatrics of ramping that up. That is absolutely true. But this isn't a Trump era thing. This has been an ongoing. Now with what Obama did was he allowed, it was easier to travel to Cuba at the very end of his presidency when that happened. So I know people who traveled like in 2017, it was very easy. You can still travel, but it's just, you have to go about it a certain way. But don't make no mistake, the United States has not stopped their sanctions on a lot of these countries and the blockade and the embargo on Cuba at all. They have it. They were never going to stop it because they see them as this threat because they're completely independent of US influence. They really are. So this is what she said. Congress of the United States, House of Representatives. This is her whole statement. We are seeing Cubans rise up in protest for their rights like never before. We stand in solidarity with them and we condemn the anti-democratic actions led by President Diaz-Canel. The suppression of the media, speech, and protest are all gross violations of civil rights. We also must name the U.S. contributions to Cuban suffering. Our 60-year-old embargo. Last month, once again, the UN voted overwhelmingly to call on the United States to lift its embargo on Cuba. The embargo is absurdly cruel, like too many other U.S. policies targeting Latin America. Absolutely, the cruelty is the point. I outright reject the Biden administration's defense of the embargo. It is never acceptable for us to use cruelty as a point of leverage against everyday people. This is kind of how I feel about the whole Hamas Israel Palestine thing, right? Like what Ilhan said. She's like, oh, I support Palestine, but also I condemn Hamas and blah 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 blah. You're going back and forth here because either you stand with Palestinians and their right to defense, which is by law, they have international right to defend themselves. Do you stand with Cubans and their right to their own sovereignty and an end to the embargo, regardless of how you feel about their politics? Or do you not? Because if you start saying, oh, the suppression of this and that, and like, and the president and his actions. What actions other than end the embargo? That's all you need to say. Just end the embargo. If you want to help Cubans, the way to help them is to end the embargo. It's not to suppress. It's not to say all these things that aren't true. These are manufacturing consent. These points are manufacturing consent. That's why. That's what you don't say, oh, but this, oh, but that. No. Hands the fuck off of Cuba. Hands off. I don't need your opinion on the ideology of how you feel about the president. I need you to just say, end the embargo. You want to help Cubans? You want to stand with them in solidarity? End the embargo, period, end of story. That's it. That's all you need to say. You don't need to start putting these CIA talking points of, oh, but the suppression of democracy and all this bullshit, especially since we don't advocate that. So we don't follow that rule for our own people, for our own citizens. Johnny, anything to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, like the first part, I don't know why she even said that. You know, there's no point in her saying that. Like you said, she's both siding it. I mean, she's playing politics. She's playing politics, clear and simple there.
Yeah, you're right. And the reason she said that is because she's signaling to the establishment, like, I have to say this to keep my progressive cred, but I'm also going to say this to let them know, hey guys, don't worry. I'm not advocating that I stand with, against the American country as a whole, against the American establishment. Just so you know, I'm just saying this. She's saying enough to get these people who still believe in her to say, oh, but she said this, so let's praise her for that.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
Exactly.
Because she's going to keep dangling this carrot. They all are. All of them. They're going to keep dangling this carrot. Oh, see, we're progressive. We want to end the embargo, but we're also going to trash the current regime, the current president, with no evidence of any of this, because there's literally no evidence of what she's saying. So we're gonna crush her. We're gonna crush them, but we're also gonna say, oh, let's end the embargo. We're gonna virtue signal. We're gonna say, oh, let's do this. But are they gonna fight to really end the embargo? No, because ending the embargo would mean recognizing that the United States is an empire that goes around the world, overthrowing regimes, cooing people, cooing countries, and meddling in elections. Yet, we're supposed to believe we have the most democratic election, that we have the most freedom of speech, when we're trying to exert international jurisdiction over the free press. And by us, I obviously mean the people in power, the state agencies, the military-industrial complex. A lot of Americans are starting to realize what's going on here. Why are we all being labeled? Why is a person that's an anti-abortion and a person that's pro-abortion technically able to be considered a domestic violent extremist? Like, when you talk about January 6th still in the way that some of these progressives are talking about it, right? And they're calling those of us who are saying, hey, that wasn't an insurrection. That wasn't this violent coup or attempt to overthrow the government. When you start saying these talking points, you manufacture consent for more surveillance, for more imperialism. And that is why I'm so critical of the people who do that. Whether they're a congressperson, whether they're a journalist, whether they're a commentator, I don't care what you are. When you start manufacturing consent and you have a platform, you are doing the empire's job. They thank you every day for what you're doing. But the people don't thank you. Americans have more in common with Cubans than we do with the people in power, with the 1%. We have to remember that. One of the things that the Black Panthers always talked about was a working class revolution of the international kind, an international proletariat revolution.
Worldwide.
Exactly. We have more in common with these people than we do with this nationalistic sense of, oh, American democracy and jingoism and nationalism. Like, we have far more in common with the people in these countries that are suppressed, and not by their own countries as much as by our own. You can criticize China, you can criticize Cuba, you can think all these things, but once you start manufacturing consent for, oh, they're so authoritarian, look at what's happening here. Look at how they're going to knock on your door if you're unvaccinated. Look at how they're labeling people, how they're trying to divide, how they're trying to get you to rat on your coworker, to rat on your family members for having a different ideology. Are you going to cancel your mother because she's a Trump supporter? Are you going to cancel like somebody because they didn't vote the way you wanted them to? That's what they want. They want us to turn on each other. And when you manufacture these points, divided, we fall. And when you manufacture these CIA talking points as you know, coming from a progressive like AOC, unfortunately for a lot of people, it becomes more acceptable. They're like, oh, well, she's right. Like, you know, they've never done any research on Cuba. They have no idea how this started with Batista and who Batista was and what he did and how they raped and pillaged and took all the natural resources from Cuba. That's why Cuba had the highest GDP, but the GDP doesn't mean crap when the people don't see it. So that's the whole talking point. Oh, Cuba was so great when the United States was there. Oh yeah, their GDP was great because we were profiting off of it. This country, America, was profiting off of it, but the Cuban people weren't seeing that. Just like it's happening in Peru, where all the wealth is going outside of the country. And when somebody comes in, that's like, hey, we got to stop that. We got to keep the wealth in the country. That doesn't mean that you're not going to trade, that you're not going to do, you know, you're not going to do anything, but that just means, hey, we need to stop letting these foreigners intervene in our affairs. That's a threat to the establishment. That's a threat to the status quo. And so when you do that, you are going to be vilified. And you wonder, many people don't understand, but like, Cuba's a small island. How could a small island survive US hegemony? How? Imagine what you had to do for that to happen, right? We don't have to agree with every action taken by the government, or you don't even have to like the ideology, but you do have to understand that once you start manufacturing consent, then that's what happens. We have coups, and that's what's happening right now, fam. Yeah, so I think it's gross that she did that.
It's all about dividing the people so you don't come together and form and start talking and be like, hey, you know what? These working conditions are actually fucking terrible. We're not getting paid enough. Did you see the price of bread? I just bought bread yesterday, fam. Something that was $2.50 is now like $4 now. Inflation's happening. I just want to say that somebody also mentioned that AOC's been a fraud. Nadia, she said that, what was it? That she supported Áñez and Guaido back in like 2019. So
yeah, she did. And she follows John. I mean, following isn't a huge deal, but you know, it's part of that whole thing. Yeah, she hasn't said much on the issue because she doesn't want to let out her cover, because her cover's still a progressive. But you know, again, the squad is there to replace the Democratic Party, not to challenge it, not to get rid of it, not to bring something new. They're there to replace them. And if you think for a second that they're going to get you healthcare, that they're going to end these interventionist regime change wars, that they're going to stop any of this by pretty much placating to the establishment and getting this sort of breadcrumbs for all, you're tricking yourself. This is why electoral politics, I'm done with it. The only reason I'm talking about this is because I'm still exposing it, because people still believe that electing more people like her or Nina Turner is going to change their life, when you have to realize nobody's going to save you. We have to save ourselves. We have to be the ones to take action against what's happening. And you're right, Johnny, everything is going up in price. And guess what? The housing bubble is going to burst come September. People are going to be massively evicted from their homes. We haven't even begun to see that. So it's really, I don't think people realize where we're at. And that's why we've been screaming too. And on top of all of this, the surveillance state, which to me is the most important thing, because we can't march for Medicare for all if we can't protest. We can't talk about imperialism if we're censored and demonetized. We can't do any of these things. We can't shout from the rooftops if we don't have the right to free speech. And it's just so hypocritical of these people to be talking about free speech, other countries denying their people free speech, that even if that were true, look at what you're doing. They do this so you don't look at what's happening right here, right now in front of you. We're demonetized right now. Every other channel that I know that's actually telling the truth is demonetized. Every channel that says anything that is too much truth for YouTube gets their videos taken down. That is fascism. That is authoritarianism. That is denying free speech. Not who's making legislation to make protesting a riot and harass protesters? Who's doing that? That's our officials doing that. Who's looking at your social media and trying to decide if you're a threat because you're anti-government, you're an anarchist? That's our government. That's the state agencies doing that. That's not Cuba. That's not Russia.
NSA,
that's not China.
DARPA.
That's the NSA. That's DARPA. That's Alphabet. That's these people doing that. And of course, along with that, of course, you know, we had Whitney Webb on the other day, Fourth Industrial Revolution, the exploitation of these resources and data mining and all of these things coming together. All of that. This is why we're at this level where we're screaming off the top of our lungs. Not because we're alarmists or we're trying to, you know, just say this because it's for fun. Like I said, I didn't even think to stream today. I'm taking a break. And I had to do this because I see this and I think it's gross. I think people are here and they're trying so hard to do something to enact change because they realize electoralism doesn't work. Just real quick, as we finish up, I want to mention that when I was reading about Fidel Castro wanted to try to have a revolution the electoral way. Initially, he tried to run for office and they rigged that election. And then he was trying to involve himself into changing things the electoral way. Then he realized he couldn't. And once he went to prison, he spent years in prison. He started reading Marx. He started reading a bunch of theory, Marxi, and he started realizing that the path to any sort of change isn't even just taking down the politicians, it's taking down corruption, because the politicians aren't the only people that are corrupt, right? It's the system, it's the power that gets corrupted. So it's not just changing the politician, it's the system. And you can see that reflected. You can elect 1 million AOCs, the system will still be corrupt. And that's what we have to realize, that electoralism is not the way, not in this moment, not where we're at right now. That right now we need to demand our rights. We need to make politicians uncomfortable because we need to start realizing that really they're not in control. Joe Biden isn't in charge. Donald Trump wasn't really in charge. The national security state apparatus and the military industrial complex and their huge merger with big tech and these gigantic platforms, those people are in power. And that's why voting isn't going to change that in a system where it's designed for your vote not to count. So anyway, guys, I'll read a couple more super rays, I think.
And real quick, fam, I want to mention something that somebody mentioned in the chat, that Florida, you know, not just progressives like AOC and everybody else, but also Republicans, you know, and DeSantis, he put that law, the anti-protest law, and then the Cubans, one part of that law says that if you block highways, that's a felony, and all those Cuban protesters blocked that highway. And in fact, the mayor was on there, and I actually have a little video here I'm going to play real quick.
Oh yeah, sure.
A felony. Of course, the Miami police reminded everyone on Twitter. That didn't stop the mayor of Hialeah from showing up with a police escort to gain some votes. All of a sudden, first responders don't matter. People have been stuck in this shit for like 4 hours. It's what I've been trying to tell you with Eddie. People become hypocrites real quick when their ideology is the one being fought for. Yo, free Cuba, though.
Yeah.
So Cubans in Miami are now blocking streets and highways. There's video of them running from the street onto the highway, and the police were cheering. Now, after the Black Lives Matter protests, DeSantis passed a bill. It made blocking highways a felony. Of course, the Miami police reminded everyone on Twitter. That didn't stop the mayor of Hialeah from showing up with a police escort to gain some votes. All of a sudden, first responders don't matter. People have been stuck in this shit for like 4 hours. It's what I've been trying to tell you with Eddie. People become hypocrites real quick when their ideology is the one being fought for. Yo, free Cuba, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, we've said it several times, right? And we talked about, Pasta and I saying, oh, it's good that DeSantis went after the censorship stuff, right? But I'm like, be careful, because these people, like, they play team sports, and that's exactly what DeSantis is doing. He plays team sports. If it's a Black Lives Matter protest, or a protest that's, not fit with his ideology, yeah, they're gonna throw out all the cops, all the stones to stop it. But if it's a protest that fits in with his ideology, they're fine with it. And that goes both ways. That goes the same with the Democrats as it does with the Republicans, because they play team sports. Like Steve Poikonen says, we don't play team sports. You cannot play team sports. You cannot play team sports. The moment you do that, you're a hypocrite. And if you're going to be okay, if you're going to be anti-interventionism, unless it's a commie country, then you're not anti-interventionism. And again, that goes for both ends of the it's not really a spectrum. They're both really like side by side here, but that goes for the Democrats too. If, oh, Ashley Babbitt deserved to be shot because she was breaking the law. I thought you were against police violence, right? Well, you're a hypocrite, because you only scream injustice when it's your ideology. And that's what I hate about a lot of the neo-progressives, that they only go by ideology first, not truth. And it goes the same with the right wingers. Oh, we're some of these libertarians too. And Reed Coverdale was calling it out on Twitter. Like, some of you libertarians turn into neocons when it's Cuba, because they're like a communist country. Like, so it doesn't matter. Your ideology, your opinion doesn't matter. You're not interventionist, right? That's be consistent in your non-interventionism. That's all I ask for. I don't really care. Like, that's all I ask for. I'm not asking you to become a Marxist. I'm asking you to not be a hypocrite, to be consistent in what you say. If you're saying hands off this country, that doesn't change depending on how you feel about the ideology. And that's what we see with DeSantis. He's a hypocrite. He changes depending on if it fits his ideology or not. And it's amazing. If those people had been BLM protesters, you would have seen a completely different reaction to that. And we know that for a fact, because I was there, Jonny was there, Pasta was there, Slow News was there, Jason Burmas was there, Andrew was there from Action for Assange. We were all there on January 6th, and we all saw how they treated the Force the Vote people, the Assange people, compared to how they treated these people that they wanted them to come in. They wanted them to have this insurrection type of thing, right? So that's a whole other thing as well.
And real quick, fam, I just saw this right before the show. It's just Jen Psaki. Oh my God, this shit fucking killed me today. I'm just gonna play it, and you can hear it.
Investments in making sure we're addressing our climate crisis. He will leave the mechanics and the timeline up to Leader Schumer. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Now that you've had a few days to think about it, does this White House still think the protests in Cuba are happening because people are upset about a rise in COVID cases there, or is there some thought maybe given to the possibility that they are protesting because they are sick of communism?
Well, Peter, first I would say communism is a failed ideology, and we certainly believe that. It has failed the people of Cuba. They deserve freedom. They deserve a government that supports them, whether that is making sure they have health and medical supplies, access to vaccines, or whether they have economic opportunity and prosperity. And instead, this has been a government, an authoritarian communist regime that has repressed its people and has failed the people of Cuba. Hence, we're seeing them in the streets. But I would note that the ideology of the government, which has failed, has led to
I can't. Everything out of that woman's mouth was a lie.
Oh.
What authoritarianism have you seen where we're at? I mean, I just got done telling you all the laws that they're passing. They're trying to take away people's guns. They're trying to take away people's right to protest, people's right to even film cops. I talked about it in my last video. They're trying to do that. They're trying to do all these authoritarian measures, all this surveillance. And there's Jen Psaki talking about, ooh, communism is a failed ideology. Tell me how capitalism has worked. And that's, we can argue that for a whole other day and a whole other show. but it's hypocritical. If you're going to say communism is a failed ideology, why don't you look at how your country is being authoritarian and fascistic in 10,000 times worse ways than other countries are, who give their people healthcare? What access to health? Can you please tell me what health like Americans have like right now? Like the vaccines have been largely, you know, like people have had a lot of issues with them. And then you're talking about access to healthcare. What you mean that like the gigantic premiums people have to pay to barely get anything covered, like the medical debt that they're in? What access is that? It's just so goddamn hypocritical. And unfortunately, too many people fall for this propaganda because, and you saw it, Johnny, when I was in Peru, too many people just have this idea that that's what it is. That communism just fails and fails because of how the United States has sanctioned, embargoed, and couped. Like you can't put that in a vacuum, right? You can't say any ism is going to be the one solution necessarily. I mean, I may believe that personally, but other people may not believe that, and that's fine. But to really compare it in a vacuum, right, where it doesn't work, because you have the US empire doing everything they can to subvert any effort in the global south. You saw what happened with Bolivia. You saw what's happened in Brazil. You see what's happening in Peru. You're seeing how they ignore what's happening in Colombia. You're seeing right now what happened in Haiti and now Cuba. And you know, and you can't ignore all of that. You can't ignore the things that are happening. And I think El Salvador too is, you know, we've talked about the Bitcoin mining that they're going to do there through the volcano. And I think who knows how long that guy's going to last, because if they stop reliance on the petrodollar, that's a threat to the establishment. That's a threat to the US empire, because that is like, wow, like if you do that, if he makes this work, if the president makes it work, it's going to change the game. So yeah, wow, thanks for playing that video.
Yeah. It was so disgusting and terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, I just can't. I want to cuss her out basically, but yeah.
Yeah, she's gross. She's perfect for that job, by the way. She's just the type of PR person that you know, I've seen those kinds when I went to school. It was gross. That's why I hated that shit. Like it's just like so obvious and so easy to spot. All right, let me read some super rays right now. Let's see here. Where are we at? DC, I sent in a Streamlabs tip regarding today's Psaki Biden press conference. I don't know if you can see that, Johnny. The response to press was virtually indistinguishable from Reagan's talking points in terms of foreign policy. Absolutely. Thank you for the Streamlab contribution. And I'm glad we mentioned that. From Vancouver, Washington, Vegan Succubus. I'm so excited you're coming to LA. I will see you there next Saturday. JVB, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch. And Blunt Fates. Every single time mainstream media and politicians show support for the far-right coups, they should be required by law to have Libyan slave market before and after photos above their heads as they speak. Absolutely. Can't forget the Libyan slave trade. Biden, this is from Carrie Mark, Biden will not prioritize closing the infamous military detention center, Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, located on the coast of Guantanamo Bay in southeastern Cuba. Hashtag hands off Cuba. 100%, Carrie. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the super raise. There's a few more. AREM, AOC's representative activity sets her as a typical Democrat. The best AOC offers the left is less than the least needed. There are only tweets, excuses, strategic differences that accompany failure, and strangely obscure legislative amendments. The strength of the establishment Dems is not standing up to Republicans or the neocon agenda, but standing in the way and against of the principal left. Standing not only against the principal left, but standing in the way of direct action. They don't want any sort of unity of the working class, because that would actually be a revolt against the people in power. They don't want that. They're there to make sure incrementalism is what happens instead, because then that way there's really no revolt. They're there to continue suppressing this this whole idea of any sort of revolution. They're there to make sure it doesn't go that route. They're there to make sure it goes the electoral, just incremental route, and that's where they're there. They're narrative management. They're controlled opposition. That's the perfect way of describing it. Chip Walter, thank you for the super ray. Fee is right. People power in the streets is the only way. I really think a lot of us are really understanding that is the only way. And it's not like people are advocating for violence, but again, if you make it impossible, you make it inevitable. What we're trying to do is making sure we get there so it doesn't get to that point. And I don't really know if that's possible at this point. Thank you, Jindo, for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Carrie Mark, that wasn't all the press secretary said. She talked about making Facebook remove the people posting COVID misinformation, at least 6 of them. Fascism. Yeah, that's what they're doing. And what do they consider misinformation? Is a lot of the things that people, like the Last American Vagabond and Jason Burmas and others have talked about is directly straight from the literature. It's directly straight from these websites. All right. Thank you guys so much for the super raise and for everything you guys have done, for sticking with us. Thank you to our Patreon members who keep us going. We don't forget you. We love you guys.
Fam, you know what's funny?
What?
Is that for those press conferences, Trump used to do all those, like, pretty much, like, whatever, like normal. Biden, when was the last time you saw Biden do a press briefing?
He did something this morning with Kamala Harris. Actually, I was at the dentist and I saw it and I was like, ugh. They were talking about giving $500 per child, which isn't a bad thing, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah, the child tax credit thing.
Yeah, but I think it's just crap compared to what they said they were going to do, right? Like they went back on everything, and I don't have a child, so like it's just, I don't know. It's just like it's $500 per like child, and he says it's for this year, but he's trying to make it beyond this year. So I don't know. That's not a terrible thing to do, but again, it's just crumbs in comparison to other things. And the child has to be 17 and under, and at this point, a lot of kids who are 18 or 19 or 20 or above are living with their parents because they can't afford to live by themselves. So maybe, I don't know, expand that. But yeah, they were there, and he was reading off of teleprompter, obviously. But yeah, Jen Psaki's the one that does all the talking.
And
thanks.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say thank you to everybody on the YouTube. Stacy Atkinson, Beater, Meinhof, Jilly Love, Lawrence Johnson, Steve Warwick. Trying to see all these people that are on there. Throne of Blood, interesting. Monarch, nice to see you there. Kat Terrell, Virgil Fitzgerald. Interesting. Slow News Day, what's up? What are you doing on the YouTube? What the hell are you doing there? Get the hell out of there.
Well,
what's wrong with you?
Fee, sometimes it's easier to get on the YouTube. I don't know.
What are you doing there, Steve? What the hell? Anyway, anything else, Johnny?
Yeah, so to combat imperialism, one of the ways that you can do that is by showing that you are an anti-imperialist. Go to the ConvoCouch.store to cop your anti-imperialist shirt. Look at this shirt. I actually ordered one for me, fam. And it's so fucking badass. I can't wait to wear it out and about, because this is what it comes down to. Anti-imperialism is the name of the game. And if you guys use code fuck Biden, fuck Trump, you get 15% off. And since you guys are watching live, you're getting that. So feel free to share it. I mean, I don't care. It's fucking, I just want this shirt out there, and it's a let's get people. What if everybody was wearing an anti-imperialist shirt? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is, and we have a men's and also women's unisex here, along with.
And if you do get it, send us your pictures.
Yes.
So we can post them.
And shout out to one of Jason, one of the Bellingers, for being the first to get it. Because
that's so cute.
they're badass.
The dog one. We need to get Molly one.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what I wanted to show real quick.
All right, guys. Abolish politicians. I like that name. All right, I agree. That's where I'm headed. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you. See you later. Convo out.
Peace.